Welcome, everybody.
Good to see all the attendees coming in.
Ah,
Hey,
nice.
Jack, how have you been?
I've been good. How about you?
Oh, doing fantastic as always.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Busy, but happy, right?
A busy bee, but happy. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely been doing a lot of swimming as we discussed. I bet you're going to be swimming this afternoon somewhere.
I'm hoping to. We'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
So lucky to be working remotely and just enjoying travel and doing all those fun things. I know you're traveling a lot too.
Yeah, I am traveling. I'm going to Virginia. A place I've never been before. Hi, Janine. How are you? I see it. It's 95 degrees in Wilmington, Delaware. It's always hot there. I see very lots of people. Hi from Fairfax, Virginia. Anna, I hope I see you next week. And welcome, welcome, welcome. Look at all the Deidre. Love Deidre. I'm so glad she's here. Chad, I know all these people. Jessica,
Excellent.
welcome. Christopher,
Well,
welcome.
well, Jack,
And
we know you're famous. We already
no,
know
I'm not as
that. We know
famous as
you're
you.
beloved.
No.
No.
Christine Simon, welcome. Yeah, look at all Tucson. They're from all of Reading,
I
Pennsylvania.
feel like you could go to any corner of the world and there'll be somebody that's been in your CFRE group.
I don't know. I've been on boats, in the Mediterranean, and people were saying, I don't know, who is that guy over there? Oakland, California. I love Oakland. Look at this is our old stomping
Yay
ground. We
area in the
worked together. Yeah,
house. Yeah, for
absolutely.
sure. I'm glad everybody's chiming in where they're from.
Yeah,
Also, feel
no,
free to drop your organization, your
Beverly.
title, so we get to know more about you and can direct this conversation
Yeah,
directly to our audience.
yeah.
And just a warm welcome on behalf of Fundraising Academy and National University. We are here today to talk about the foundations of earning your CFRE, tips, strategies, and a proven study plan. And who better than Jack Alato to
I
walk
love
us all through all of that? I want to make sure that um, we get our screen shared. So Jack, if you can share that with everyone, that
oh,
way we can walk
yes.
through the presentation. And in the meantime, just a quick word about Fundraising Academy. We are here to help you along your professional development journey, whether it's these at no cost webinars on a monthly basis, or our blog, or our social media tips. Please do take a look and learn more about Fundraising Academy. We have a host of tools, worksheets, everything on our online portal. We will share that link in the um, chat and also at the end. We want you to learn more about Fundraising Academy and how we can be of benefit to you, your institutions, your colleagues. We also have a certificate course that you and your teams can sign up for. But without doing much more, we want to get into the topic as well. So great to see all the roles and organizations represented here in the chat. I'll be moving to Houston, so Eliza, keep an eye out for me. I'll be in the spring area, opening up a coffee shop, and would love to host you for your donor meetings there. We will be asking each of you to put in your questions in the Q&A feature. Obviously, you can chime in on the chat as well, but the Q&A feature helps us monitor the questions and make sure we don't miss anything, as the chat is usually popping all throughout. So my name is Muhi Khwaja. I'm a trainer with Fundraising Academy. I'm also the co-founder of the American Muslim Community Foundation. Been part of the FA team over 4 years. Time has flown. And it's all because of a recommendation from Jack Alato. So the power of Jack is that you listen to what he says and you get what you want in life. You rub his shiny head and you just ask for what you want, and it comes true. He is a genie in that way. So, um,
Oh,
a little bit more about Jack. He and I
And
met.
before wait, well, Mooey, you're actually a senior trainer.
Well, I believe that. Yeah, and that means you should be too. You should be a
I am.
senior
I am.
trainer. I could be a so yeah, we should update our titles for
Are
sure.
you making a reference to my age, a
Not
senior?
at all. Nope. That would be an HR violation, and we would not want that.
Okay.
So Jack Alato and I go back to the lovely year of 2016. About 10 years ago, I took a CFRE course with American Red Cross. Jack was teaching it through Association of Fundraising Professionals at Golden Gate chapter in San Francisco. I was a newly minted major gift officer at the Red Cross. And Jack took a chance on me, just like he's taken a chance on many of you. And he believed in me from that moment, told me I could be a CFRE. And I was a young whippersnapper at that time, 31 years old. And I believed him. I didn't see in myself what he saw in me, but I think that's Jack's gift. He believes in people, he believes in their potential. And I'm not even going to get into all of his accolades of where he went to school and what he's done in his career, because I think what's more important is just who he is as a person. And who Jack is as a person is somebody who is in your corner. He'll fight for you, he'll believe in you. And I think that everybody needs somebody like Jack in their life. And if you are fortunate to have Jack in your life, you are truly special. So without further ado, I pass it off to Jack to go
Gosh,
over the
yeah.
objectives.
Great. And thank you for that excellent introduction. I have to tell you, when I introduce you, I'm never that nice as you are. So, but I'll
That's
try to
because I'm not
behave.
as nice as you. You should just be honest and real.
Okay. So, welcome everybody, and especially our friends from Canada. I saw several people from Canada. I love Canada, and I'm happy that you're here. So, just briefly, this is our objectives, our agenda. Briefly, we're going to talk about what is a CFRE. Many of you know why become a CFRE, and Mui and I can both tell you why we are, and how to pass the CFRE exam. That's the thing. Some tips and strategies, which I think are important: focus, determination, and being positive. And of course, your accountability partner, your study plan. So, but before we get started, we're going to do a poll because I love to hear from you guys. And I'm sure we are going to see those questions, but I'll just let you know. Here they are. I'm seeing them. So please just, take this poll. Still trying to decide.
Yeah.
I'm
Where
certified to
are
take the
you
test. Yeah, I've
in
picked
your
my test
CFRE
date. Yeah.
journey?
And of course, we could answer the question. We are a CFRE. So yes, nice.
Yeah, I'm a two-time CFRE, but we'll get into that.
A two-time CFRE.
Learn from my
Well,
mistakes.
you should put CFRE if you're a two-time CFRE.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah,
It might
good.
just be a CFRE at this point. Like, let's
Yeah,
get there.
yeah, no kidding. That's your next goal. That's a good one. So we're at
Well, my
80.
next goal is to become a Q grader, which is like a coffee sommelier.
Oh,
And
nice. I'm gonna come
yesterday
to
I just took
Houston.
a barista course. Please do.
Yeah,
You have to
I'm
come for
gonna
the
come
grand
to
opening.
Houston, and yeah, I've never
Yeah.
been to Houston. Our mutual good friend, LaShonda Williams, is in Houston.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
And here's
So
my cup of Joe.
there you go. All right.
Yeah.
So 83% have said so. 58% says they are still trying to decide. And guys, let me tell you something. Both Mui and I, we're good ambassadors for CFRE. I am officially an ambassador. So reach out to me. I'd love to talk with you about where you are, why you should do it, etc. One-on-one, we could do that. Of course, 22%, they're certified to take the exam. Yes, I love that. And that is
Amazing.
really important. You've picked your test date, and that's another reason to connect with me. And of course, zero other than people. Mui and I are probably only two CFRE. So thank you guys who participated in that poll. So moving right along. So let me share those results. You should see them hopefully. And there they
Yep.
are for you to see. Great. So why get the CFRE? Why become a CFRE? Because you know what? I like to say this, Mooey. CFRE stands for Certified Fundraising Executive. It's an executive level credential, and it shows that you have competently achieved something in the profession that you have selected, that you are competent in it. It gives you credibility and career advancement. And I think when I look at job description, job announcements that come, many of them now are saying CFRE preferred. And you've probably seen that. Many of you have probably seen that in your own job search. It provides recognition. Both Mui and I love to put that credential. We put our advanced degrees first, and then we put the CFRE. It provides recognition. People know it. It has given me a great deal of personal satisfaction. And Mui, I can't tell you the number of people, once they pass that test, they're hoop whooping and hollering and happy, and they're so thrilled that they have done it. They've achieved something. And of course, it is a credential. It's not a certificate. And of course, CFRE has done surveys of CFREs, and on average, a CFRE it earns 17% more. In our profession, CFRE is the credential to achieve. Say that all the time. If you were in accounting, it would be the CPA. Okay. Or if you were a lawyer or studying to be law, it would be the JD. In our profession, it's the CFRE. Now, many of you who have heard from me before, have attended study groups with me, you know that I say this at the beginning of every study group. There are 3 ways to pass the test. And I'm going to spend some time reiterating that today. Content, understanding the content of that you will be tested on. Strategy, and these are strategies to pass the test. CFRE is not like the SAT. It is not like the GRE. It is not like any standardized test you've taken before. And we're going to talk some strategies today. You're going to hear me repeat those. If you've listened to me in the past, you'll hear me say it again. And you is the third way. You are the person who brings focus, determination, and a good study plan. So let's
What I
start
will
with,
say here
go ahead.
is there is one way to not pass, and that's to double guess yourself.
Oh,
When
yeah.
you doubt yourself, when you have a feeling that you're right, and then you may have a feeling that you're wrong, go with your gut.
Yeah.
Trust
And you know what?
yourself, your intuition.
Mui, the Cornell University, that great university in Ithaca, New York, I read a paper by them. Multiple choice questions, go with your gut. Your first answer is most likely the correct one. Now, when we talk about strategy, you're going to hear me say this again. You could flag some questions, but don't go back and doubt yourself. When I took the test way back, whenever that was, I cannot remember. I remember I finished like a half hour, an hour early, and I went back and started looking at every question. And honestly, Mooey, you nailed it. I started doubting every single answer I had put on that test. So don't do that. That's not a strategy to pass. And we'll talk more about that. So, what about content? There are 6 domains: prospect research, securing the gift, relationship building, volunteer engagement, leadership and management, and ethics accountability. And you have to get an understanding of each of these 6 domains. Every single fundraising cycle that you could think of, Hank Rosso's cause selling, the one that Mooey and I teach at National University, starts with prospecting. Prospecting is the first. Securing the gift is where we talk about things like building a culture of philanthropy, developing a case for support, identifying solicitation strategies, all of those important. When I think of securing the gift, one of the things that I think about is building that case for support. It's foundational to the work that we do in fundraising. With prospect research, just to step back to that first domain, it's about linkage, ability, and interest. Finding prospects and qualifying them based on their linkage, ability, and interest. Then you move them. Once you've qualified them, you move them to that part of this cycle where you secure the gift. And that's where we talk about Rosso's concentric circles. We talk about lots of different things here, tools. One of the things that I love about us in fundraising is that there are so many tools that we have to be successful at fundraising. And in securing the gift, some of the tools that we have begin with relationship building. CFRE is a relationship building strategy to get to close that gift. CFRE is a donor-centric model of fundraising. And all of the things that we do in cultivation and stewardship and creating those things are all about building relationships with donors. We talk about in cause selling, asking open-ended questions. And I always like to say, yesterday I was on with AFP Global doing a fundamentals course with my good friend Ken Miller. And one of the things that I always say is when we ask open-ended questions, two of the most important open-ended questions that I like to ask are, when you gave a gift, this is what you ask a donor. When you gave a gift in the past, what was the best thing that happened? What was the most engaging part of you giving a gift? And listen to what they say, and then do that. The second question I like to ask in building relationships is, when you gave a gift in the past, what was the worst process you felt from the organization or from the fundraiser? When you ask those two questions, you get so much information. When they tell you, well, they didn't thank me in a timely manner, they sent me a letter about impact, I didn't feel that they were grateful for my gift. Whatever that donor tells you when you're building that relationship, don't do that. So we learn a lot by asking those open-ended questions. Building a culture of philanthropy is also key. Making sure that your organization is ready to engage in the fundraising process. And of course, with volunteers, what do we do with volunteers? We identify, we recruit them, we orient them to our organization, we train them for specific roles that we give them. I like to see in this domain, I like to say this over and over again, we cannot do our work without volunteers, and CFRE gives us that domain to help us engage with volunteers. I also like to say in this domain, when we have study groups or when we teach the CFRE, that volunteers have internalized the mission, the vision, and the values of our organization. And they are way more credible, guys, way more credible than we are at identifying prospects, soliciting prospects, cultivating them, soliciting them, and stewarding them. Really effective. And then, of course, leadership and management, which is a very large domain. I said it earlier at the beginning of this webinar, it's certified fundraising executive. It's not certified fundraising manager. It's not certified fundraising officer. It's an executive level. And as executives, as CFRE executives, we are leaders and managers, and we have to understand how that works to the benefit of our organization. And of course, ethics and accountability, such an important part of CFRE. If nothing else, if you get nothing else from this webinar today, remember that ethics and accountability are central to everything we talk about when we talk about CFRE. So mastery of these six domains, which that's the content part of what we do with CFRE. So remember, content, strategy, and you. Let's talk about strategy. And this is where I think is one of the most important things that we do when we're teaching CFRE, either is a deep dive at AFP Global are in my study groups one of the most important things. Remember the most important thing that you could about content, when we talked about content, is it's a relationship building model of fundraising, and it's a donor centric model of fundraising. The donor is at the forefront of the work that we do. And of course, as I said, with ethics and accountability, it's very important about the ethical and accountability of fundraising. We cannot be successful in our work as fundraisers if we are not ethical. It is really foundational. So it's a donor-centric model of fundraising. Remember that. It's about building relationships. And something that I say, and actually CFRE tells us how they create the test. Let me tell you one other hint about strategy. I think it is a must that you purchase the CFRE Compass Study Guide. They publish
Well,
one
on
book,
this
people.
point,
Go ahead.
yes, I know you're probably going to get there, but in the Q&A, Chad
Yeah.
asked, does the CFRE exam compass study change much from year to year? I have a 2024 version and was wondering if it is adequate. My
Yes.
quick response is I know that they changed the strategy, I believe in 2025 or the format, but Jack, I'll leave it to you to give the more
Well,
appropriate answer.
so I have all of the books, all since they started publishing. I think they started them in 2020. And the only difference that I see, Chad, is that in later editions, some in the earlier editions, some of the questions that they give you at the end of each domain in the Compass Study Guide, some of the questions in the earlier editions, the answers were incorrect. So they fixed that in the later editions. Now, both Mui and I have taught CFRE for AFP Global, and I have the latest edition, the 2026, and I don't see much change. I really don't. I always do a comparison about the CFRE Compass Review book. One of the things I always say, and I was starting to say, is that open to page 90 in that book. That's where CFRE tells you how they create the questions. They talk to you about qualifiers. And in my review of the questions at the end of each domain, or when I'm sitting with a person about to take the test, and they share with me some questions or answers, there's most of those questions have a qualifier. And what is a qualifier? A qualifier is a word that will point you to the answer. For example, if they say, what is the first thing you do when you are creating a capital campaign? They mean the first. They don't mean the second or the ninth. They mean the first. That's a qualifier. If they say, what is the primary function of a cultivation plan? They want to know what the primary function is. Why would you do that? So the word best, most, I love this word. When I was a kid, Mooey, my dad used to say, Jack, you should eat your peas. I always use this example because I hated peas as a kid. When he said, Jack, you should eat your peas, you know what he meant? He meant you must eat your peas. He wasn't giving me an option to eat my peas. If you see a question with a qualifier, what should a
Jack,
fundraiser do?
you should make a donation to American Muslim Community Foundation.
Yeah, but here's the
And
thing, Mooey.
he does, by the way. So don't.
Yeah. Now, if you were my dad instead of someone who could be my son, maybe I would listen to you.
Grandson.
Or oh, nice. Thank you. Another HR violation. There we go. Hey,
No.
Katie, I hope you're recording all this. Okay. I love you, buddy. I do love you,
I
and
love
you
you
make me
too.
laugh. You make me laugh. Okay. So a qualifier is something that you must pay attention to. Must is the qualifier in what I just said. If they say should, that means you must do it. So I think I looked at Mui. I think I looked at like I did a Google search. Give me the number of qualifier words that are in the English language, and there's lots of them. Okay, so do remember that to look for that qualifier in the question. Now, here's the thing about the answers. It's a multiple choice test. There's 200 multiple choice questions. 25 of them are not going to count towards your score. I guess I should have said that earlier, but I'm saying it now. So there are in those 200 multiple choice questions, two answers, one of which is what they call a distractor. It distracts you away from the correct answer. So you have to learn. What I say in my study groups is you can pretty much narrow it down to two answers. And that's good because that gives you a 50% probability of getting the right answer. And I always urge people to make sure that they're answering it and not picking the distractor. Here's another thing that CFRE says, and I repeat it over and over again when I meet with people and in my study group. Everything you need to answer the question is in the question. Everything you need to answer the question is in the question. Don't bring stuff into the question that isn't there. If the question is about cultivation, don't talk about stewardship. Don't think stewardship. Here's another thing. CFRE's test is based on an international group of people. They get together, they create the questions. Best practices is something they talk about in the study guide, in that CFRE study guide. And best practices are best practices which have been standardized in Canada, in the US, Australia, lots of different countries. So it's not about your best practices. It's about the best practices that CFRE has determined. Here's another great reason why you should own that CFRE study guide. At the end of each domain, they have a section called additional best practices. And additional best practices are something you should know. Okay. You should know those additional best practices. So I've said a lot of things about strategies there to remember everything you need in it to bring. Don't bring things into the question that aren't there. Everything you need to answer the question is in the question. So don't bring other stuff out. Here's the other thing. Don't bring your own personal strategies that you do in your organization. You probably have some best practices around stewardship or cultivation or solicitation or whatever. Those are your best practices. You have to understand and know what are the best practices that CFRE has determined. And they're in that book that I've been mentioning. There are some situations in the test. They'll give you a scenario. They'll talk about things. Okay. So it's really important that you understand that these scenario questions require an end of the scenario. If it says something like, oh, you're visiting a patient in a healthcare facility, do you need the patient's, do you need a healthcare professional like a nurse or a doctor there? All of those things are scenarios. Okay. So with strategies, remember that this is an ethical base test. It's based in ethics. Okay. If you come to a question and you cannot figure it out, ask yourself, which is the donor-centric answer? Which is the answer that builds relationship? And then finally, which is the most ethical answer to this question? And you'll get to the right answer that way. Okay. Those are some strategies. People, I can't say this enough. Read all the questions carefully. Read every word of the question and every word of the answers. Mui said earlier,
And
don't change
yeah,
your answers. Go ahead.
to that point of reading every single answer or in question word by word, it's there because you may assume something, and if you miss a word in that sentence, you may be thinking something else. It's there
Yep.
to trick you.
Yep. It is
So
there
be
to trick you.
careful with how you read it. There's plenty of time, at least for someone like myself. You may
Yeah.
need a lot of time and in your study habits and in your test taking habits. I'm not a strong test taker. Like SAT, ACT, I was very average, below average.
Yeah.
Um,
That's why you went to a
so
secondary university and not one of the top ones.
University of Michigan, my expletive, sir. Um, I still got in. But I think that
Yeah, good.
for
No,
my method of study, I was never the strongest student.
mhm.
Um, but I worked hard.
Yep, me
And
too.
I would say I worked hard enough, I worked smart enough. And how I did on this exam, even, it was like, I think 81% or whatever. I think fairly above the minimum, but not exceeding, right? And I was
You know
okay
what I
with
always
that.
say? You only need
You
500.
pass, you pass. Yeah.
You pass. If no one has ever asked me, and I don't even remember what my score was, but
Yeah,
remember, you just get across the finish line. And that's
absolutely.
a score of 500. And I think that's about 62 or 63%. So that's doable. And remember ethics. Here's another thing that people do. They overanalyze. I listen to people when we in our study groups when we're reviewing those 5 questions at the end of each domain. I'm listening to them. I'm saying, show me how you're doing this. They overanalyze it. It's not, you don't be careful of that. I get it. If you're training to be a doctor, you really do need to overanalyze, but don't overanalyze when you're studying for the CFRE. Okay. Identify the answer before looking at the choices. This is right from the Compass Study Guide. I'm reading this one. Keywords, find them in the questions and then find them in the answers. Answer all the questions. I know someone who didn't pass the test because he left 6 questions blank. Don't leave any blanks. A blank is a wrong answer. There's no partial credit for picking the distractor. Okay. And another thing that I think is really important is to understand that this is a weighted test. And some of the questions that you have on the test are going to be weighted more heavily towards your score. And you could figure that out by looking at the percentage that each of the domains has as it counts towards your score. And you could see that in the Compass Study Guide as well. Remember, skip what you don't know, come back to it later. Here's the thing, you could flag it. When I took the test, one of the things that I did, I would flag a question and then I would continue. And then I would get to 3 questions later. And in my mind would pop the answer to that question I flagged. And many people have told me this happens to them. It just something triggers in your brain that you could do it. Remember, you could always make an educated guess. It's a donor centric model. And this is the most important thing. Don't get rattled. Don't get rattled. Executive level credential executives don't get rattled. Although sometimes the movie's able to rattle me, but generally I don't get rattled when I'm taking a test. So remember what I said here. Distractors, understand that a distractor is leading you away. It may be a correct answer. It's just not a correct answer for the question. That's why I say read the questions carefully. And of course, look for those qualifiers. There are about 70 in the English language. They are out there. Here are some more strategies that I like. As I said, there are 3 essential strategies to pass the test: content, strategy, and you. Assess your knowledge. On page 11 of the Compass Study Guide is a self-assessment. You should take that self-assessment. It asks you if you know how much you know about each of those things. From that self-assessment, you could build a study plan. And I think a study plan is one of the key strategies you need to pass this test. So assess your knowledge. You know, another place where I like you can assess your knowledge is by purchasing the practice test at CFRE.org. And I always say only purchase it for 30 days. Here's how I would do it. I would purchase the practice test and I would set aside 4 hours to take a 200 question practice test. And they'll give you the scores on that practice test for each of the domains. Okay. From those scores, I would build a study plan. I would say, oh, I didn't do so well in prospect research, so I need to emphasize prospect research. Okay. And then I would do my studying for 30 days. Then I would take the practice test again at the end of that time period. Here's the thing about the practice test. If you keep taking it over and over again, you're going to memorize the questions and you're going to memorize the answer. And it is not a way for you to learn. And you're going to say, oh, look. And people have said this to me over and over again. Jack, I scored 90 percentile on the practice exam, but I didn't pass the test. And I would say, well, how many times did you take the practice test? And they say, well, about 5, 6 times. Well, it's not going to be a good way for you to learn. Okay. So, what I recommend, and I strongly recommend this, is that you buy the practice test, you take it, then you build a study plan. And then at the end of your studying, then you take that practice test again. You look at your two
Right.
scores, and then you adjust your study plan going forward. Here's the other thing that I love
And
about both the Compass Study Guide questions and the practice test. In that practice test, they show you how they have constructed questions and how they've constructed the answers. That's a learning skill. Mu, you were going to
yeah,
say something?
just some points in the chats that I want to chime into. So
Sure.
Jennifer was talking about a step-by-step process of getting the credential from scratch. I think what Jack is sharing on the tips and strategies will help you by far. And if you're earlier in your career, you have to meet certain criteria, right? You need to have raised a certain amount, you've had to volunteer to a certain amount, you've had to have some education to a certain amount. And that's what this webinar is. You can apply it towards your CFRE hours for continuing education units.
Yep.
And what I will say is if you build off of this and then you join one of Jack's study groups, you will be in a good place to start building your checklist of what you need. And Fundraising Academy in our portal has a checklist of how to get started on your CFRE. And if you go to the CFRE website and you build a profile, that also is almost like your
Oh,
checklist and everything like that. So there's a lot of resources there. One
yeah.
more thing, Jackie also
Well,
mentioned
let
that,
me comment on Jennifer's
yeah,
question for a
please.
minute. So here's the thing, Jennifer, two things. One, you could connect with me. I'm going to give you my contact information. I'm an ambassador. I'd love to chat with you about the process you're going through. Number two, and this is for everybody in this webinar, go to CFRE.org and download the candidate handbook. Jennifer, that's going to outline for you the process. And I urge everybody to download the candidate handbook. It's free. So do that. Go ahead, Louis. What was your other question?
Well, just more things to catch up on in the chat. Jackie mentioned that she's looking into a 16 credit fundraising management graduate certificate, and that is approved as a continuing education provider for the CFRE credential. I haven't heard of that specific one, but if you know of the institution that is hosting it, Jackie, drop that into the chat. Maybe we can
Yeah.
offer some more insight. And then there
Louis, you
is,
mentioned
yeah,
mylearningportal.org as a place to get continuing education credits. My study group gives
absolutely.
continuing education credits. Any AFP Global webinar that you could download if you're a member, or CASE. If you're a member of CASE, you could go to there. They have continuing education credits, and definitely the Association of Healthcare Philanthropy. So whatever association you belong to, or none, you could still get a lot of free continuing education credits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the portal link was in the chat that we placed in earlier. Hanny says, "Is there any questions app to train with real questions?" I'd found a website just by searching, and it was like flashcards almost. It was maybe 30 questions. It would rotate. You could select it. You would then answer, and then it'd just keep rotating.
Yeah.
It was a free resource. I don't remember the website, but there are plenty of similar ones like that. And then Christina says, if you purchase a practice test, is it the same test multiple times or does it change? In my experience, it's the same test. You get one per purchase, or if there are
Yeah.
other multiple ones from different providers, you may be able to get different versions. Because again, and the questions are a set of like 500 questions or so, and no two people taking the exam are going to get exactly the same questions, right? They weight it differently. They select which questions to grade for you. So there's always a different um, exam experience per person.
Yeah.
And then the last one, do you know if we can include political fundraising as fundraising experience? Jack, I'll let you take that one.
Well, if you work for a nonprofit, yes. You know what I say? Here's what I say to people when they say, "Well, I'm not sure I could include this. I'm not sure I could include that." You know what I say? Put it all in there. And if you're audited, which they audit about 5%, then it might matter. They might ask you about it. But I always say this, and people say, "Well, I took this course, at UC Berkeley, or I took this course at, Cornell, or I did this." I say, put it in there. It's
Some
okay.
second tier
Yeah.
university.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Well,
Uh,
Michigan is not I'm sure. So I don't know why they, whatever. Anyway, so
I'm just busting your
I went to
chops.
state schools too. I went
Yeah.
to state schools as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then the last question that we have so far from Chad, how many practice exams can you take? Are there different practice exams or is access to the one exam? There are multiple. CFRE has their version, but then there are
Yeah.
other institutions that have their own.
Yeah. And I'm gonna favor CFRE's practice exam over others. As I said, they write the test at CFRE.org. If you find one somewhere else, I know a lot of people use Chat GPT to create questions, and I've done that for my study groups, etc. But I really think that it's I always say this to guys. All these practice tests, they're probably easier than what you're going to experience when you take the real test. And those of you who may have taken the real test and haven't passed yet, that I think you'll verify that, at least in my chats with people who have taken the test and have not passed yet. So I mean, Mui and I have been talking about join a study group. Mine, there are others. I know I see them, and CFRE lists them on their website, study groups, or form your own, guys. Get together with people in your community. I know a healthcare system in Florida. They meet there, have their own study group. I've been to their study group or virtually been to their study group and worked with them and how they're doing, etc. Remember this, discover your learning style. And here's the thing, everybody has a learning style. What got you here? Like Mui's a college graduate, he has a graduate degree. What got him here is going to get him to the CFRE. And it did. Okay. What got all of you on this webinar here will get you across the finish line to the CFRE. And one way that you do that is by understanding your learning style. Now, I have a learning style that's this. I read a book, I use a yellow marker, I use a yellow highlighter of this thing. They're all over the place. I take notes on the book that I've read. I repeat them. I walk around and say things, concepts, etc. I know people who are visual learners. They build artwork about the concepts they have in CFRE. Understand your learning style, and that will get you across the finish line. I've already said best practices, so I'm not going to repeat it, and it's an ethical model of fundraising. Here's the thing that I'm going to wind up on this slide with is don't memorize concepts. I say this over and over again. Instead, I want you to understand what is it, how do you use it, why do you use it, and when would you use it? Let's take an example. Rosso's concentric circles. What is it? It's a series of circles. It's a tool we have in fundraising. When would you use it? When you're trying to acquire donors for an annual campaign, a capital campaign, any kind of campaign you could think of, planned gifts, legacy, whatever. How do you use it? You start in the center. You go to your major gift donors, you go to your board members, and you go to your administrative staff and ask them the question, is there anyone in your circle of influence, in your network, that might be interested in the vision, mission, and values? And why would you use it? Because it's a fabulous tool that we have in fundraising. I could think of several tools that we have. We have the rule of thirds. We have a gift chart. We have the donor pyramid. There's lots of tools we have. And what I say is don't memorize things. Understand what the donor pyramid is, how you use it, why you would use it, and when you would use it. Don't memorize. Okay. All right. Moving right along. Checking the time here. Okay. Now we're to the third part. You. And that is such an important, you are enough. I say this at every study group, at the beginning of every study group. You are enough. Whether you get the CFRE or not, you are enough just the way you are. Okay? Not everybody has to achieve the CFRE because they're enough as they are. Get accountability partners. That's what joining a study group does. It gives you an accountability partner. And if you have a smaller study group, those are your accountability partner. Your study plan is an accountability partner, especially if it has a series of steps you're going to take. And let me tell you something about a study plan. I have seen maybe dozens of study plans, and some of them are awesome. And the ones that I like best are the ones that say, here is my study plan to review these 6 domains, but on September 20th, I'm going to visit my grandmother, or I'm taking my children on a short day trip, or my husband and I, or my wife and I, we're going on a hike. Build into your study plan time for you, your family, and especially you. Okay? Join a study group, as I said before. I am a person who believes in the power of positive affirmations. Every single thing I've ever done in my life as a result of me having a positive affirmation. Let me tell you how people use positive affirmations for the CFRE. Many people have told me they get a yellow pad and they put it on their mirror and they say, on September 20th, I will be a CFRE. That's when they're taking the test. I talked to someone today. She's taking the test on Monday, and I said, on Monday, you will be a CFRE. Positive affirmations work. So do it. Here's a really important thing that I want all of you to remember. Anticipate roadblocks. If you're a person who gets stress, anxiety, panic attacks, or fatigued, or any of those things, those are all roadblocks to you successfully completing that test and becoming a CFRE. Let me tell you something. I get all of those things. I have anxiety, I have stress, I have panic attacks, and I get fatigued. Okay? I know those are roadblocks to my success. But what I've developed and what I want you to develop is to anticipate those roadblocks before you take the test and figure out how you're going to deal with them. Because we all have roadblocks. I wrote a blog for CFRE. I'm not sure if it's still up on their website, but it was about anxiety and test taking. And I like to say this, everyone gets anxiety. I have never met a person who said, I am an anxiety-free individual. Maybe they're psychotic or something, and that makes it okay. But most of us get anxiety, okay? So, and then the final thing is imposter syndrome. We live in societies that tell us, whether Canada, the US, wherever it is you are, Great Britain, that we are not good enough. Maybe we are members of a marginalized group. Maybe we are people who have who have a gender of women, or people of color, or LGBTQ plus people. We have to get past the societal syndrome that they've given us that we are imposters. We are not imposters. And I want to tell you something. Every time I talk with somebody about imposter syndrome, guess what happens to me? I get imposter syndrome. I say, who am I to talk about imposter syndrome? Remember, we all get these roadblocks. Okay? So remember positive affirmations. I love those. Study hard and go into that exam with the mantra, that positive affirmation that I will pass this test today and believe in the power of yet. If you haven't passed the test, it's not that you've failed anything. It's that you just haven't passed it yet. Okay? And that is something. Remember, yet is about the future. as opposed to being present focused and say, I failed. That's the tyranny of now. So be future focused. Okay. And having focus and being determined and positive affirmations, all of these things are so important. I cannot emphasize enough, and I put it on this second slide, the power of yet and positive affirmations. Believe in you. I am taking the CFRE. Here's a positive affirmation. I am taking the CFRE because I am a professional fundraiser and I will pass the CFRE exam. I will achieve the CFRE. These are all positive affirmations, and I want you to say them every day until that test date that you have. Okay? And believe in yourself. Positive affirmations are real. Study hard and go into the exam with that mantra that you will become a CFRE. Okay, moving right along. We have about, what is it, 30, 40 minutes left, Mui? Think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should be good on time. We've gotten through all the questions in the chat as well. There's a few that came in. So there was just some clarification around the CFRE test exam. Yes, that would be the best one, as Jack said. Yes, definitely read the book. That would be the best way to get acquainted with the exam. You can find those resources at cfre.org. How are classes and credits tracked? If you build a profile at cfre.org, you can add them in. Institutions register with CFRE when they say that it is CFRE accredited or approved. You have to find that institution on their portal. You add that
Right.
in. They can cross-check and verify the attendance list. That is how it is based. So you put it in on your end, and then it's up to CFRE to verify it on their end.
Yeah. If you're certifying and you're looking for continuing educations, if you just put my name in there, it populates with a continuing education credit. If you put the Lilly School, it populates some course at the Lilly School or at the Fundraising Academy, a webinar at the Fundraising Academy through mylearningportal.org. All of those things just populate.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
CFRE.org also has study groups that you can find.
yeah,
So Christy, if it's not Jack's group, but another group, you might be able to find it there. When American Muslim Community Foundation hosted the Muslim CFRE study group, which Jack taught, it was listed on CFRE's website, and we had people from all around the world join as well.
yeah. You mentioned books, and I just wanted to go back to that. Someone had the question about books. So, of course, I've been advertising for the Compass Study Guide. I think it's important. But there are two other books that I love. I absolutely love, and I highly recommend them. One is Achieving Excellence in Fundraising. Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, fifth edition. I love the book. I've read it several times. I read the third, fourth, and I've read the fifth probably twice. So it's a great book. But my all-time favorite book, um, not to not to say any other books are bad, is that I love Fundraising Basics. Fundraising Basics, third edition. It's written by Chikanti and Jacob, and I think it's a great book. Both of those women have written an easily readable book, and they've retired. It's the third edition. Now, here's the thing. If you were to buy all of the books that are recommended, you would spend thousands of dollars, especially if you bought them new. Okay. So the three books that I recommend are the Compass Study Guide. That's a must read. Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, fifth edition, and Fundraising Basics. But here is a search engine that I love. It's called, just flew out of my mind. It's a place where you could find used books. I can't not remember it. I'm going to have to find it and come back to you guys. And so, Bookfinder, bookfinder.com, guys. Go to bookfinder.com, put in something like Fundraising Basics, third edition, and that search engine is going to tell you everywhere you could buy that book, and it's going to list the price. So bookfinder.com, for a minute there, I had some kind of a senior moment there, Mooey. So yes, so use that search engine to find used books. If you want to read like Simone Joyeur's Keep Your Donors, go there and try to find it used. Some places, like in Canada, I know you could borrow books. I know they have a big interlibrary loan system, and I've worked with many Canadians who are able to borrow those books from university libraries or wherever. Is there a question in the Q&A before we move on?
One just populated in there as you mentioned it. It's like you willed it into existence. Christopher says, "Do the continuing ed courses have to be CFRE approved?" I have attended a number of conferences, but they may or may not have been approved. I would say add them in and let CFRE decide whether they count or not. And they
Yeah,
will review
yeah,
your application. They will let you know what works, what doesn't. So
yeah.
add everything you can think of in and go from there.
Yeah. I mean, as I
And
said earlier, they audit about 5% of the applications. If you get audited, and in my experience of doing this since 2016 with MUI study groups, it's only happened twice that they've audited two people. And so what would happen, I always tell people, if you get audited, connect with me immediately. Let's talk about what they need. It was a woman who worked in the healthcare system, and trust me, I'm sure it happens randomly. And she got an audit, and I talked with her, and then one other person got an audit. So if I agree, MUI, put everything in there, and they'll decide whether it's acceptable or not. And if you are having issues with that, there's lots of, I'm not the only ambassador in the United States. There are tons of ambassadors and you could find an ambassador at CFRE.org. I happen to be here in California, but I know Barbara Evans is in New York City. I know lots of people all over the country who are Michelle Maslowski's in Florida. You could find all of these people, and you should communicate with them, guys, and they
yeah,
are they are charged with helping you through this process. It's not just me and Mui. There are a lot of us, and I think CFRE has done a great job. When I first became an ambassador, I think there were like 7 of us. Now I think there are hundreds, and that's good.
well,
So
I think I
definitely,
need to become one for sure.
yeah, you do,
I'm
and they do that
yeah,
in October. In October,
awesome.
Mui. So I will remind you when they send
Please.
out that need for that, because it's really an awesome thing to do.
Yeah,
Okay,
I just want to clear out the chat list
go
and the
ahead.
questions before we proceed. Um, so yes, Hanny, read through the book for fundraising excellence and work through it. That will help. We see all the websites to get the books at. Past questions, is there any link for that? Again, get the questions from the CFRE study guide and also the practice exam, Enoch. That will be the best.
Yeah.
Um, do they audit when you apply or after you pass? Mary, they audit when you apply to let you certify to take the test. So Gwendolyn, if I know I need additional time to prepare, can I purchase an extension before my current testing
Yes.
window expires?
Yes.
Yes, you can. What is the process for that, Jack? And are there any deadlines?
If you're like I'll tell you something that is just amazing. I love to tell the story. I'm not going to mention the woman's name, but she got on a Zoom with me a week before she was going to take the test, and this was her. I don't feel ready. I'm not ready. Should I do it? What should I do? And here's the thing, guys. Mui and I cannot tell you when you're ready. Only you can tell you when you're ready. So I mean, I thought she was ready. I want her to decide for herself. And she said, I'm worried, I'm this, I'm that. I want to tell you something, guys. She took the test when she was supposed to. She got the highest score that anyone has ever told me.
Wow.
Don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt yourself. You can do it. She got the highest score. And believe me, I've people tell me their scores all the time. And I could have said to her, oh, delay the test, but why? I knew she was ready, but I couldn't tell her she was ready. So don't doubt yourself, guys. Here's some of the
Yeah.
things. Any other questions? I mean, I'm seeing the chat pop
Yeah.
up.
Nope. We got the Q&A going. So,
Yeah,
uh, Jackie's also asking, is it all multiple choice or short answer?
it's all multiple choice.
And Anne is asking, if I certified today, I have to take the test by the end of September, right?
You have a year.
A
You
year.
have a year to take
And
and pass the test. So, and there
what?
are 4 testing windows, okay? And they publish that at their website. And sometimes on LinkedIn, I will put those up there. If you certify today, then they'll give you 4 testing windows when you could select.
And
You could take it in the final testing window of this year in that September to December 31st. Or you could take it January to February, March of next year. And I love that because then that gives you the wherewithal, and you say to yourself, I'm taking that, I'm doing a self-assessment in the study guide, and this is how long I think I need to prepare to take this test. Okay.
Yes. So really quickly, I want to avoid more questions in the chat just to be on time and take questions in the end.
Yeah.
So if you
Okay.
do
So let's,
have questions, please put them in the Q&A and
yeah,
we'll address
we're
them in
gonna
the end to let Jack
we're gonna we're
proceed.
gonna have some time at the end, definitely. So here's the thing: 80 hours. Most people, it takes 80 hours of study. And I think you need to spread that out. You know, I talk to people and they say, I'm going to spend 2 hours a day for the rest of this month. That's a lot. Okay. Spread it out, guys. Join a study group. Here's what I do: short burst of reading. You know, some fundraising is pretty dry. Don't quote me on that because they'll kick me out of the fundraising profession. So I do short bursts of reading every day. And I read a lot of books about fundraising. I'm reading one right now about curiosity, having a culture of curiosity. So I believe in short bursts of reading every day. It might be 15, 20 minutes. And then I pair it with rewards. I love the process of pairing. I always say this: if I do this 20 minutes of reading, or I do this 20 minutes of exercise, or 20 minutes of whatever, I pair it with something that I like to do. One of my favorite things to do is eat ice cream. So I might do studying for 20 minutes and a small bowl of ice cream because gotta watch your weight, but do a short burst of reading. Review what you read every day. You know, people say to me, all of a sudden, Jack, in my studying, it clicked. A woman said that to me earlier today. Okay. It just clicked. I finally figured out what's going on with this. Okay. Create notes. I'm a note taker. I have reams and reams of notes. Join a study group. I've said this before. At the end of each domain, you get 5 practice questions in that Compass study guide. Do them. Do them. Here's what I say about practice questions. And I say this all the time, Mui. When you get a question wrong on the practice test at CFRE.org or in the domain quizzes, ask yourself, why did I give it that wrong answer? What brought me to that wrong answer? Maybe I brought things into the question that weren't there. Maybe I ignored the distractor. Maybe I forgot the qualifier. Ask yourself, why is that? Why did I pick that answer? And then look at the correct answer and ask yourself this: why is that the correct answer? We learn by our mistakes on the practice test. We learn through our mistakes in those 5 domain quizzes at the end of each domain. Pay attention to that. If you don't look at why you got it wrong and you don't understand why you picked the wrong answer, you're going to do it again. So don't do that, and be sure to do that. Now, this is my final slide before we take questions, and I'm going to put my contact and Mui's contact information up there at the end. Reach out to us. You could email me. You could connect with me on LinkedIn. You could send me a message on LinkedIn, or you could just email me. Okay. You have power. CFRE gives you more power. Who are we, guys? Who is Mui as a fundraiser? Who am I? We are teachers. We are managers. We are leaders. We are negotiators. We are activists for our mission. We are analysts. We are cheerleaders. And most important, we are boundary sprinters. We sprint in between our community and our organization. We do that every day. We have power. And it's time for us, especially now, to exercise that power. The CFRE shows the world, board members, donors, your coworkers, your supervisors, your clients, that you believe in the fundraising profession and that you have achieved the credential, and that gives you power. Okay? That's my little rah, rah, rah thing at the end. Happy to take questions. Before we
Kudos.
do that, let me just do the summary. I'll put up our QR codes and then we'll take questions. Okay, Mui, just let me finish these slides.
Yeah.
You can do this. Gather your resources. Be sure to understand the essentials you need to pass. Use tips, strategies, and hacks. Believe in yourself. Most important. That's the third strategy. Here's how to connect with us. I'll come back to
Yeah.
this.
We'll leave this. Yeah.
I'll come back. This is go ahead, Mo. You want to talk about this slide here?
Absolutely. Scan the QR code. It's the same link we shared in the chat earlier. We'll share it again. This is where you can find our blogs, all of our historical webinars, which count as the continuing education units for the CFRE, resources, worksheets, donor conversation questions, and more. So this
And they're
recording
free.
will be, yeah, at no cost. This recording will be there. So if you missed some of it, or if you want to get the slides, or you want to get the presentation, share it with colleagues, all of the above, you can register today and start learning more on this journey, whether it is your first step towards your CFRE or you are ready to take the exam. Come back to Fundraising Academy for more. And when you will then be able to hear about our future webinars. You can learn more about our Fundraising Essentials certificate, which I mentioned. This one is a paid certificate, but if you and your colleagues have a professional development budget, it might be the right fit for you and your team. Or maybe your local AFP chapter wants to help and get a discounted price for group rate. So we can talk more about that as well. So thank you, Hanny, for the shout out on the platform. Find myself and LaShonda at the San Diego Fundraising Conference on September 9th and 10th. We will be there to learn more about building trust with donors, deepening donor relations, and securing long-term revenue. So be sure, I think it's the third or fourth year for the San Diego Fundraising Conference. A great conference, about 800 to 1,000 people attend. So you really are able to meet a lot of people, and they have a good 15 to 20 vendors in the room that you can get to know as well. And it's a great few days of professional development. If you
And
need
it's
to
San
come out to,
Diego.
yeah, exactly. If you need to come out to some sunshine, there will be an abundance of that.
Yeah,
So
and Mui, will you be wearing a tie and jacket?
I doubt it.
Okay. LaShonda Williams is awesome. I love LaShonda. LaShonda and Mui have both been in my study group. So that's good.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then we should
So one thing I
definitely
will share about my experience, right? I talked about having to be a two-time CFRE, and you can go back to the questions slide or what our LinkedIn
let's
slide.
give our
Yeah,
sponsor credit first. Sorry.
absolutely. Very important. Good
Yeah.
call. Bloomerang helps us make all of these webinars possible, and they provide some generous support to Fundraising Academy. So they are our exclusive monthly webinar series sponsor. And many of you know of Bloomerang. You can scan the QR code. They help nonprofits unlock more funding, support, and engagement with a unified giving platform built for purpose. So check them out for sure. You can go to our URL of our LinkedIn slides. And in the meantime, again, Jennifer, you can find the study groups at cfre.org. And my CFRE experience, I became one in 2017 after taking Jack's study course in 2016, and it lasts for 3 years. I did not maintain my profile on CFRE.org. I got lazy. I forgot about it. I extended in 2020, and then life happened with COVID, and they were generous enough to give me until 2021, but life was still happening. I went through a divorce at that time. So it fell through the cracks. And in 2019, I believe I had to I had in 2024, I had to retake the exam because I let it slip. So I had to take the exam twice. I would not recommend that. If you can avoid taking the exam a second time because you're already a CFRE, just maintain your profile, keep putting in your education
Yeah.
units, your experience, and build it out. It'll be a lot easier on you.
Yeah. And the
So
benefit of you taking the test twice was that you had to attend two study groups with me.
I don't know if that was a benefit, Jack, but let's say it was a blessing. Let's say it was a blessing
Okay.
in disguise.
All right. All right.
Uh, So Awesome. We'll jump into the questions, and please keep adding them to the Q&A feature so that we can get through them in a timely fashion. And there are six, so let's get through it.
Yeah. So
Gwendolyn
I'm going
says,
to stop the share and I'm going to put my email, and you might put your email also in,
yeah,
excuse me, in the chat. So in case you could connect with us with these QR codes, definitely, but you could email me too. Okay. So I'll put that in chat and then we'll take some questions and answers. Let's have a conversation, people.
absolutely. I've dropped my email and LinkedIn into the chat as well for you. Please connect with me. Mention you were on the Fundraising Academy webinar, so I remember. Now, Gwendolyn says, if I know I need additional time to prepare, can I purchase an extension before my current testing window expires without first attempting the exam? If so, what is the process and are there any deadlines I should be aware of?
So I think what I would do is I would connect with Paul Cavazos at CFRE, and I'm going to give you his email address, and then I'm going to put it in chat because he is the certification manager. He's an awesome human being. I like him very much. Paul Cavazos. His email is PCAVAZOS at CFRE.org. And I'm going to put his email in there. PCAVAZOS at CFRE.org. He is so responsive, guys. He's such an awesome human being. And he will respond
Yeah.
to, whoops, there I am.
He's the one who helped me extend during COVID, but still, yeah, great responsive guy. Highly recommend reaching out to him. Um, and then there was another similar question. Um, is it true that you can only take the test two times once approved to sit for the test?
Um, I'm not really sure, but I do know that of some people who have taken it more than twice. That you could, if that's a rule, then you could always contest that. I don't know. I've heard people who've taken it more than twice. Maybe they
Yeah,
waited a
I would
year.
imagine they let you retake it as many times as you need. But that's just me.
Yeah,
So don't
I
quote
think
me
yeah.
on that.
So I
Um,
put my email in there and I put Paul Cavazos. Mui put Paul Cavazos in there as well. Yes, connect with him. If definitely I'm willing to talk to anybody on this Zoom call. Send me an email. We
yeah,
could set up a half-hour Zoom meeting to talk about where you are in the credentialing process.
Jennifer, your question, how do you find study groups? CFRE.org, they have a section about study groups. Jessica has a few questions. The Achieving Excellence in Fundraising. Remind me the author, Jack.
So it's several authors. The
Yeah,
Temple is it's published by the Lilly School, and in fact, I'm pretty
got it.
sure Mui that's their
Yeah.
main
That,
textbook.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fifth edition.
Fifth edition, yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you can get
And
it
then
used. Buy it used. It's not that expensive, but you can buy it used.
CFRE's resource reading list. Do you recommend all of them, one of
No,
them, many of them?
no, I like the three books I mentioned. Definitely the Compass Study Guide. And I like the Achieving Excellence in Fundraising fifth edition, and of course, Fundraising Basics third edition, Fundraising Basics third edition. And
Got
yes,
it.
definitely.
And I've placed that link for the resource reading list in the chat. Anne says if you add extra education on your certification, can you use that towards continuing ed?
So once you certify, um, it stops. You've already certified to take the test, but once you pass the CFRE, as Mui was mentioning earlier, then you have to
Keep it
start
going.
record. You keep it going. Here's the thing. I like to say this. I have a master's degree in developmental psychology. I worked with children during the early part of my career around doing assessments and things like that. I've never, here's the thing, you're not going to ask if you have children who you want to do development assessments on, you're not going to ask me because I have never had any continuing education requirement. The wonderful thing about CFRE is that we recertify every 3 years. That recertification means that we're keeping up in our profession. I did not keep up in my with my master's degree. Okay. I was done. I did it for a couple of years and then I went into fundraising. So I didn't need to do it anymore. And so I really urge you to, once you pass that test, is to keep all the records of all of your continuing education credits. You don't take the test again to recertify. Once you take that test, it's done. It's done. And I love Deidre says manifesting it. I love manifesting it. If you want, I'll send you a great article about manifesting things from Axios I send to my study group participants. What else you got?
Excellent. Um, Yeah, those were all the questions. We cleared them out. I think, be sure to follow Fundraising Academy, learn more about our journey to help you and your teams get to where you need. We would love to be a resource to you. Stay connected with Jack and I. Come to the San Diego Fundraising Conference. As always, thank you, Bloomerang. Um, and, you get 15 minutes back in your day. So use
Yeah,
it how you wish.
yeah, absolutely. And remember, guys, you have power. Your analysts, your managers, your sprinters, you do it. You're doing the
You
work.
fuel missions around the world.
That's
That's
right.
really what you do. Don't
Yeah.
ever lose sight. I know many people think of fundraisers as beggars externally or people who just continue to ask. What you are doing is you're helping facilitate good in the world. You're
That's
making the
right.
world a better place.
That's right. You
Um,
have power.
yeah, absolutely. I'd love to be your friend in real life. Hit us up on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and let's stay in touch.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you for paying attention and sitting through us. And Mui, always, thank you so much. You always make me laugh. And even though it's at my expense, I still find it funny.
Good. I'm glad you have a sense of humor. I love you, Jack.
I love you too, buddy.
All right. Take care.
Peace.
Aloha from